I just saw the movie One Life in theater, starring Anthony Hopkins and Johnny Flynn, along with Helena Bonham Carter, and it was wonderful. It's based on a true story that takes place in late 1930s Prague, right before the Holocaust starts, about a man named Nicholas Winton who sees what's happening in Prague, sees what's happening in Germany, and to the Jewish people, and tries to sneak out as many of the children as he can to go into foster homes in England. It's based on a true story of people who actually did this, and it's weird to say that it's a positive movie about the Holocaust, but it kind of is, because the message itself is really uplifting, even though the movie is not super fun to watch, obviously. So there'll be spoilers. I'm just going to talk briefly about it. It's based on a real guy, so if you know the story, then you know the ending anyway. The story is that Nicholas Winton is a stockbroker in London. He goes to visit his friends in Czechoslovakia, in Prague, and when he sees what's happening, he feels like, I have to do something because I'm able to. And he walks around these sort of refugee camps. He sees all the starving children. He sees a woman crying over her dead kid. He sees kind of what's happening in Germany and the writing on the wall. And he wants to do something before it's too late. So the movie has two timelines, one in 1938 and one in 1987. The movie is primarily a drama. And once he sees what's happening with these children in particular, he tells the parents, like, hey, I'm going to take pictures of your kids, take them back to London, get everything in the newspaper, and draw attention to this so that people will take these children in. And he's talking to pretty influential people, and eventually a bill gets passed that any refugees under 17 can come in with a £50 deposit, which is equivalent to about £3,400 today, and if they have someone who's willing to give them a home. So they're looking for foster parents and trying to raise money to bring in as many kids as they can, from Czechoslovakia to England. So that's the whole past timeline. The present timeline is Anthony Hopkins is kind of dealing with getting older, and he needs to clean out his house because he's kind of a hoarder, and he's struggling with the regret and guilt from the kids that he wasn't able to save. So in the past timeline, he goes in, he's only supposed to be there for a week. He ends up staying for like a month and getting the people around him to agree to help, because they're all pretty negative at first. So like, look, we have to be realistic. We can only do a certain amount. And his attitude is very positive, and he's like, well, we at least have to try. So he persists, he makes phone calls, he uses whatever connections he has, and eventually he gets approval for this program to bring the kids over. The rest of the past timeline, he's in London talking to newspapers, trying to get attention to it, trying to get people to help. And he's essentially saying that if normal people knew what was going on here, they'd be willing to help. That most people aren't really aware of the full extent of what's happening, which is why they're not offering to help. Which is a very optimistic outlook on life and humanity in general. And a couple characters in the movie say as much. In the present timeline, as he's cleaning his things out, he has this scrapbook, and it's essentially this photo album full of pictures of the kids' faces and stuff that he's scratched off. And you figure out that the ones that he scratched off, he found a home for, and the other ones, obviously, he didn't. And almost all of the kids in Prague at that time ended up in the Holocaust camps and didn't survive. So as the past timeline goes on, he gets 8 trains worth of kids from Prague into England, each one with the £50 deposit, each one with a home to go to temporarily. At least that's what they believed at the time. And then the 9th train they don't get, because that's when the full-fledged Holocaust starts, Kristallnacht and all that. And you find out that the number of kids that he saved is about 669 out of roughly 2,000 that he was trying to get brought over to England. And a lot of his present timeline is him kind of being frustrated that he feels like he could have done more. And even in his old age, where he's kind of a crotchety old man, his attitude is still, well, I should do what I can. So the whole situation with the present timeline is that he's never told anyone that he's done this. This is just something that he did because he thought it was the right thing to do. And his friend encourages him to put his binder in a museum or give it to one of the Holocaust museums or something so that people can see what was done. He kind of implies that it's good to see the actions of good people, and it's not bragging to just do good things and make people aware of it. So he's cleaned out his office, and he has this scrapbook that he wants to make use of to draw attention to the issues of refugees. And he gives it to this woman, Elizabeth Maxwell, who's a Holocaust researcher, and her husband is Robert Maxwell, who's a big media guy at the time. And apparently he's Ghislaine Maxwell's father. A little bit ironic there. At the time, there was a BBC show called That's Life that was kind of goofy, but he was invited to it to sit in the front row of the audience. And in the middle of the program, they cut to him, and one of the girls that he saved was sitting next to him. So he's kind of annoyed by it because he's not really out for making a name for himself or anything like that. And at the end of the movie, you get a really touching scene where they invite him back. They say, hey, we found a couple more of the people. They want to meet you. He says, okay. And when he's there, he meets them in the audience again. Except this time, the host says, can everyone here who owes their life to Nicholas Winton please stand up? And the whole crowd stands up. And then the movie ends pretty positively with him inviting over a couple of the people that he saved and their families. And he's kind of reconciled with his guilt, is the implication. It's a pretty straightforward plot. Anthony Hopkins is still awesome, even though he's like 90. Johnny Flynn, who plays his younger version, he's a British actor I'm not familiar with, but he does a good job. Helena Bonham Carter has a pretty small part. Obviously, she's always good. So yeah, overall, just a really good movie. I don't know if I would quite call it a feel-good movie because the backdrop is still the Holocaust, but the message is very feel-good. So there's an interesting contrast there. If you're looking for a movie to go see, I would absolutely recommend it. Very simple, very straightforward, character-driven movie. Yeah, I'm not going to ramble on too long about it, but I saw it and I really liked it. I'm kind of over all the World War II movies in general because there's been like a million by now, but this was definitely a different take on it with the positive messaging in a horrible situation. And it's just nice to see people like that in the world who are endlessly optimistic and will go to those kind of lengths for other people when they don't have to. And that's something that's brought up over and over in the beginning of the movie also, is he has no reason to do this. So I'm going to wrap up there. If you saw it, let me know what you think. I'll try to respond to all the comments, like and subscribe and all that. Thanks. See ya.